Hi, I'm JoAnne Liebeler.
And I'm Dean Johnson. Welcome to Hometime. We're going to be building a brick patio. It's a project that's easy enough to do that quite a few people should be able to undertake it.
We'll be dry laying concrete brick pavers for this project. In addition, we'll be pouring concrete for two types of sidewalks, one with permanent redwood edging and another with a curved side.
Hometime is made possible by Chevy Truck, who brings you tough, full-size Chevy pickups for professionals and do-it-yourselfers like you. Chevy S10 pickups, compact, fun, and hard-working. Chevy S10 Blazer, logic and laughter in 2- or 4-wheel drive. Chevy Astro, the van that can. The heartbeat of America. Today's Chevy Truck.
This video is just one in a library of instructional programs designed to assist the viewer in working on a wide range of home improvement projects. And before we begin our program, I want to explain how you can best make use of this educational system. First off, you should watch the tape all the way through to get an idea of the methods, the steps, and the terminology we use. To help familiarize yourself with the terms, we've included a glossary in the project guide. Then you should review the tape again, only this time, check with your project guide to determine the tools and materials appropriate to your project. Then take the project guide to your local building supply dealer or home center. The people there will be able to assist you, answer questions, and direct you to what you need.
Even though the materials we'll be using will be different, bricks and concrete, many of the steps involved are the same. Planning and design, laying out the site and establishing grade, excavating, building forms and edging. Then for the brick patio, we'll cover laying and leveling the sand, laying the bricks, and leveling and finishing the patio. Special steps for concrete include pouring the concrete and finishing the concrete. You'll find all these steps listed in the tape reference chart of your project guide. It's also a good idea to mark down the counter number on your tape player at the beginning of each step to help you review.
The tools you'll need for both the brick and concrete projects include tape measures, one being at least 25 feet in length, a 4-foot level, mason's twine, a line level, a square blade spade and other shovels, wheelbarrows, sod cutter, a tamper, either built or rented, a circular or miter saw, a hammer, and a 4-pound mace or baby sledgehammer. For the brick patio, you'll also need a rubber mallet, a hydraulic brick cutter, a vibrating brick compactor. For laying concrete, you'll need a wooden or magnesium derby, a bull float, a mag float, an edger, a groover, a wood float, and a finish trowel. And if you're mixing a lot of concrete, you'll find that a portable mixer is a real time and labor saver. These projects have moments when you'll have to get a lot of work done quickly. So it's not a bad idea to line up a few friends ahead of time who could possibly help out.
One thing you should always take time for is working safely. Wear eye protection whenever there's a chance of eye injury, and treat all tools with the proper respect. It could be that the hardest part about building a patio is deciding what to build it out of. There are all sorts of materials to consider depending on what you want the patio to look like and how much time you want to spend building it. These large concrete patio blocks probably give you the most patio area for the least cost and effort. You can almost just set them on the lawn with an inch or two gap. They come in other materials like these exposed aggregate squares and rounds. This material is concrete with the stones exposed on the surface.
The expense and availability of other materials like flagstone or adobe tile will vary in different parts of the country. But one material that's very popular and available just about everywhere is brick. We're going to be using a concrete brick. These are less expensive, more durable, and provide a surface with a little more traction than standard clay brick. They also come in shapes that interlock and in a variety of colors.
Let's take a look at the brick patio we'll be building, outlining our design decisions as we go along. The concrete patio that used to be here was too small for this house, and it wouldn't have complemented some of the landscaping that's being planned. So we're going to replace it with a larger, more interesting patio. We knew we wanted a larger patio. A good rule of thumb is that there should be about 64 square feet for every family member. That brings our patio from about 10 by 12 to about 20 by 24. But rather than have a plain rectangle, we angled it out from the door. Then we changed the angled sides to 4-foot steps to continue the right angle theme of our bricks. And we'll continue that theme by alternating the brick pattern in 4-foot squares. And instead of the gray of the concrete, we'll use a reddish brick. Finally, we'll add a notch right here at the corner so we can plant a tree.
The right planning and the right tools make any home project go easier. And so does a new full-size Chevy pickup, like the ones we've got here. A long wheelbase 2-wheel drive model and an extended cab with 4-wheel drive.
These trucks look good, don't they? And they're tough. Base coat clear coat paint is used for a brilliant finish and is part of 7 layers of corrosion protection in critical areas. And underneath the aerodynamic styling is one of the heaviest frames ever made for a full-size Chevy pickup.
Both of these big Chevys come with an 8-foot cargo box, so they can carry 4x8 sheets flat on the floor with the tailgate closed. Plus, you can insert supports here in the box sides for double-deck loading.
The regular full-size Chevy cab has plenty of room for 3 people. If you want even more room, this extended cab model is the way to go. With available seating, there's all kinds of space in here for up to 6 people. You can also fold the available rear seat down or up for additional lockable storage space in back.
This model also has 4-wheel drive, so InstaTrack is standard. InstaTrack lets you shift from freewheeling 2-wheel drive to 4-wheel drive high and back again at any speed. You don't have to slow down, stop, or back up. InstaTrack lets you stay in this comfortable cab and shift on the fly.
You'll shift with hard-working, fuel-injected power, too. These big Chevys come with a 160 horsepower, 4.3-liter Vortec V6. Depending on the model, you can also get available V8s with up to 230 horsepower.
On wet or icy roads, you'll like the standard rear-wheel anti-lock brake system, or ABS for short. It's designed to give smooth, stable stops. On a 4-wheel drive model, ABS operates only when the truck's in 2-wheel drive.
Treat yourself to a test drive of a new full-size Chevy pickup. 2- or 4-wheel drive, regular or extended cab.
You'll see why today's Chevy truck is the heartbeat of America. We've removed all the patio and all the materials are assembled. Now the base for the patio will be sand. This is coarse bank sand. A ton will give a 2-inch base over 100 square feet. We'll be using a little over 6 tons for a patio of a little over 500 square feet. Now if moisture or drainage is a problem, it's a good idea to apply a 2-inch base of gravel first and then the sand on top of it. And to save the grass, we've laid down a couple sheets of plywood boards. We'll throw the sand on top of those.
You also need to think about where you want your bricks delivered. You want them as close to the work site as possible. Now the standard size for a brick is 4 inches by 8 inches by 2.5 inches. With this size, we'll need about 4.5 bricks per square foot of patio. However, because brick sizes vary, you want to select your brick before you finalize your design. That way you can adjust your patio before you have to cut too many bricks.
A sand-based patio requires solid edging to keep the sand from leaking away or the bricks from shifting. We'll be using 2x6 redwood. It complements the color of the bricks and it also holds up well during weather. You could also use landscape timbers or treated lumber. You'll find a materials list in your project guide. Use this in your patio plans when purchasing your materials. Building any patio requires a lot of stakes to lay out the site, establish the grade, position the form boards or edging. Now you can cut your own stakes or buy them pre-cut. These are 2x2s cut to 18-inch lengths.
There you go. Now this patio will be about 24 feet long and about 20 feet wide. So our first step is to lay out the dimensions. You got it tight there?
Yep. Go ahead.
Alrighty. Now we'll need plenty of stakes, mason's twine, and measuring tape for this, and we'll be using something called the 3-4-5 method to make square corners. At this point, we're treating the patio as if it was a rectangle. Later, we'll measure and stake for the staggered section. We attach a line to the house where the outside edge of the patio will be. From there, we make a mark on the house 3 feet away.
Then JoAnne takes a twine out to about where we think the outside corner will be and rests it on a batter board.
Yep.
Once we set the tension on this line, I make a mark on it 4 feet out from the house. JoAnne adjusts the position of the twine while I measure from the second mark on the house to the mark on the twine. When the distance between the two is exactly 5 feet, the corner is at a right angle and we fasten the twine. Then we repeat this for the other remaining outside corner.
Okay. Got it.
With both sides strung, we measure out the length of the patio on each string and run a line to mark the side parallel to the house. Okay, I'm on the line right there.
All right, and I am here.
As a final check, we measure the diagonal distance between corners. If they're equal, then the corners are
All
square.
right. 31, 8.5.
Okay, I'm tight against the wall here.
Same thing.
All right, good.
Great. For our patio, the only drainage problem will be on the surface. So we're going to give it a slope or grade away from the house. Now to do this, we'll run a second set of lines underneath the first set at the exact height of the redwood edging. That'll tell us how deep we need to dig. Since our doorway is level, we can simply run a line under it across the side of the house. This sets the level of the house side of the patio to bring it flush with the underside of the door threshold. We attach a line to a stake at the height of the patio at the house. Run this line out directly underneath the existing line to another stake. Now use a line level to set this line exactly horizontal. With a run this long, you want a lot of tension on the line to keep it from sagging, and you want the level right in the center of the line. Mark the level point on the stake on the end.
Acceptable grades vary from a 1/4 inch to an inch drop over a 6-foot run. Over our 24-foot run, we'll take a 2-inch drop, which should match fairly closely the overall grade of the yard. We measure down 2 inches from the level marking. Then we just lower the line to that mark, keeping it taut and square. We repeat the process for the other side.
Right, then my mark will be right.
We also run a line to show us where to dig out for the side with a staggered edge.
The first step in digging up the lawn is to remove the top layer of grass, or the sod. By doing this, we can save the sod for use elsewhere on the lawn, or we can use it to fill in on the patio when we're done.
This is a hand sod cutter. You simply push it along using the roller, and the blade cuts through the sod to a depth of about 2 inches. I kick it forward with my feet on the cross piece and push it and steer it with the handles. Once I cut a strip, JoAnne rolls it up and takes it away.
Be sure to store your sod in a cool, damp place. Rolled sod will only last a day or so.
We remove the sod to a little outside the lines. If you're lucky, you'll be able to run the sod cutter under your grade line. Otherwise, you'll have to mark them, remove them, and put them back when you're done.
With the sod removed and a new grade line here on the end, we're ready to finish excavation. Now it's easy to know how deep to dig here on the edge. We need to go at least 5.5 inches below the grade lines to make room for the 2x6 redwood edging. On the inside, we want a depth of at least 2 inches for a layer of sand, plus enough for this 2 3/8 inch brick. Now we actually want the brick to end up 1/8 of an inch above the redwood so that the beveled side is flush with the top of it. And we want the bricks to be a little higher than that to start because we're going to compact them down about 1/4 of an inch once they're in place. So we'll need to excavate 4 inches below the grade line, and we'll do it with a technique called skimming.
Using a flat-nosed spade, slide the blade horizontally into the dirt at the desired depth and lift off the top layer. Be careful not to dig the ground up underneath. By doing this, you leave a solid, undisturbed layer of dirt. This is important because dirt that's been dug up will eventually settle and damage the patio. We restring a grade line every 5 feet or so. This way we always have a reference to guide us in skimming.
We're finished with the excavation, but we've discovered that here, near the door where the old patio used to be, the ground is deeper than we need it to be. So we need to bring it up to the proper level with this Class 5 gravel. Class 5 gravel consists of pieces that are 3/4 of an inch and less. We shovel it in place and spread it around. First we'll use the shovel and then follow up with the rake. Once we've got a layer about 3 or 4 inches deep, we pack it down. We use a hand tamper for this. You can also make your own tamper out of wood. All it does is pound down the ground, a small area at a time. If you're building a patio in an area where there's a drainage problem, you'd probably want to use the same techniques to put a 2-inch layer of gravel under the entire patio.
We pour in a second layer of gravel to bring it up to grade and tamp this down too. Yeah, that should do it. That's fine. Now we can finish laying out our lines. We already have our outside lines established. We use the 3-4-5 method again for locating the irregular outside corners and sides. When we string these in, we'll put them in at grade. Okay. Yeah, mark it right there.
Right there?
Yep. Got it?
Got it. All right. right, I'll wrap.
Each jog in the patio is 41 3/8 inches. We run grade lines parallel to the house at this interval. Next, we mark off the width of each jog on these lines. Right there.
Here. Got it.
Okay.
Yep.
Then we square out from these marks and set these lines to grade. Okay, that's
Brought
about
you a
done.
little something.
Great, wonderful. How about some gloves?
It's got some gloves too.
With the lines in place, we excavate underneath them for the forms. Yep. Okay. Before we fill the area with sand, we're installing our perimeter forms. I'm nailing the ends, yet most of the weight is supported by stakes. Because these forms are permanent, we'll want to use stakes that won't rot over time. We'll be using pressure-treated 1x3s. We drive the stakes into the ground until they're about 2 inches below the top of the edging. For this piece, we'll start with 2 stakes, one near each end. We align the top of the edging with the grade line. Bracing the form with my foot, I nail through the stake into the redwood, using 8-penny galvanized nails. Once we've secured it at each end, we place a stake in the center and straighten out any bows in the wood as we nail it into the stake. We put the stakes every 3 or 4 feet. To start the second side, we nail 2 pieces together and slip them into place at the same time. Once we've gotten some forms in place, we can backfill in from both sides.
I'll give you a pile over here.
Okay. With the edging in, we can finally take down all of our lines. We also install a 2x4 to grade in the center of the patio. As you'll see, this is just a temporary piece to help us level the sand.
Well, we're ready for the sand. We're going to be raking it to a depth of about 2 inches. And if anything, we're using a little more sand than we actually need. That's because our next step, screeding, scrapes the sand off to the perfect depth.
Once we've filled an area about 4 or 5 feet out from the house, it's time to start leveling it out. This is known as screeding. To make sure that the sand's at the exact depth, we've made a tool called a screed. It's made out of a straight 2x4 and 1x2s. The screed rests on the redwood edging. The blade is 2 inches deep, so it scrapes the sand off to a level 2 inches below the edging. Just what we want. Okay, my way, your side one more time. All right, go. Over here. All set? Use the screed until you've got an even surface, filling in any low spots and removing any excess sand.
We use different length screeds for different sections of the patio, but 8 or 10 feet is about as long a screed as you want, which is why we put the temporary 2x4 in.
Okay, your side? Yeah. All right, I'm down, yeah. Okay. All right, go. Okay, your side again? Go. We built a little bridge over the form so that we wouldn't knock it with a wheelbarrow.
Once we've screeded out the sand we've got, we pour more in and repeat the process until the whole area is filled and screeded. Let's go.
Okay, go. Okay. Ready? Go.
Stands to start here.
And forward.
Go. We have to shovel out some sand here at the end. Your side?
Yeah.
All right, go. And we can use a hand trowel to finish out any small sections. The last step is to remove the temporary 2x4 screed guide. We'll fill in the gap that's left over as we place our bricks.
Now for the fun part, laying the bricks.
Laying bricks on a patio this size requires a lot of kneeling, so it's not a bad idea to cushion your knees with knee pads like these, traditionally used by tradesmen. I'll get a couple more.
Okay. These bricks have small ridges on all the sides. This means the spacing will be consistent and exactly even throughout the whole patio. We had to remove just a little sand to get the bricks in under the threshold, and we have to slide these bricks in, trying not to disturb the sand.
As we lay our bricks, we'll be taking them from different pallets. The colors can vary from batch to batch, so this way they'll all end up blending together. I'll load these right up with the rest.
All right, thanks.
As we finish a row along the edge, we go back and lay the next, working away from ourselves.
We're using a jack-on-jack pattern, and we butt the bricks right up next to each other.
As we get farther out, we kneel on the bricks that have already been laid.
You want to tamp it a bit?
Yeah.
All right.
Get in there. Every so often, we snug the bricks together with a rubber mallet. Once we get 10 rows out, we'll align the square, wrapping on the edge with a mallet and a 2x4. Now it's time to change the pattern. This gets us all the way across the first 2 squares in front of the door. From now on, we'll work from the center out so that we can make any adjustments in spacing on the outside edges.
After you've done the first course or 2 and are comfortable with the job, the patio will quickly start to take shape.
Now, we were pretty careful in measuring and laying out our patio, and were able to avoid cutting any bricks. You may not be quite so fortunate, especially if you're using a different brick pattern, like one of those laid out in the project guide. In that case, you may want to rent one of these, a brick cutter. It uses hydraulic pressure to break the bricks. The pump forces a brick up into a blade and snaps it apart. A good quick pump on the lever gives the cleanest cut. And because bricks shatter when they break, be sure to wear safety glasses.
The next step in our sand-based patio is to fill in these joints with fine mason sand. Now we only need a little, and we'll spread it out with a shovel first.
We use a broom to spread it out a little more evenly. Don't worry about forcing the sand down. We'll do that in the next step. If we had made the patio out of clay bricks, we would have settled each brick with a rubber mallet as we laid it down. However, these concrete bricks are tough enough to stand up to a power compactor, so we're able to tamp the entire patio at once. This machine has a plate on the bottom which presses down on the bricks and vibrates. This pushes the bricks down into the sand and pushes the sand down between the bricks, locking them in place. You don't want the machine to sit too long in any one spot. Just let it move forward at its own pace. There's a real danger of pushing the bricks down too far, so go easy at first. We do the inside areas first. Then I make a few runs along the outside.
Our last step is to add a little more sand and sweep the entire patio. We want to fill in the joints up to the surface. Brush hard at first to force the sand down. Then go back and sweep off any excess from the surface. Well, as we've seen, a sand-based brick patio is easy to build. It doesn't require any special skills, only a few special tools, and the result is beautiful.
With the new landscaping in, it's quite a transformation from what we started with. If brick is one of the most popular paving materials, concrete has to be the other. Concrete is a mixture of sand, gravel, and cement. It's mixed with water, but once it's hardened, water doesn't dissolve it anymore. In working with concrete, you basically have 3 options. Which one you choose will depend on the size of your job and how hard you want to work.
The toughest approach is to mix the 3 ingredients yourself. Unless you're an expert, we recommend buying them already mixed. You can get pre-mixed concrete either dry in bags like this where all you add is water, or fully mixed and ready to pour from a truck.
We're going to be building 2 concrete sidewalks, one under this deck and one leading up to a front door. For this walk, we're we're using a technique that allows us to work at a leisurely pace and do the job a little at a time, and work with these dry mixed bags.
For the sidewalk in front, we'll use another technique where we pour the concrete in all at once.
Either way, the timing's important. You want to make sure that once you pour your concrete, you have enough time and manpower to finish the job before the concrete begins to harden. Under this deck, we're going to be constructing a series of permanent forms made out of redwood boards to divide the walkway into easy-to-construct squares. Done this way, we can work one square at a time, pouring and finishing the concrete at our own pace, and still end up with a sturdy and interesting design. The walkway will have two sections, one leading from the patio door out to the yard, and the other from that to the stairway on the deck.
First, we remove the stone mulch covering much of the walkway site. Laying out the site is done in the same manner as with the first patio we built. You'll need lots of stakes, mason's twine, and measuring tapes. The forms we're building consist of squares 3 feet to a side, plus a few odd shapes necessary to fit the walk-in with the landscaping touches we've planned.
97.
97.
Bring it back a little bit.
97 and a quarter.
97 and a quarter.
We also place the lines roughly on grade. Once all the stakes are in place and all the corners squared, then we can outline the excavation with spray paint.
We skim the soil off the top, going down only as deep as we need. In this case, since our sidewalk is going to sit mostly above ground level, there are some sections we don't have to skim at all. We just dig out for areas for the edging. Since this will be supported to grade by stakes, if we dig a little too deep, it won't matter. We leave a line in to give us a rough guide for depth, and measure to leave room for the 2x4 form.
Now we establish our final grade using the same techniques as we used on the brick patio. We set a level line out from the high point of the walk, the end closest to the house. We calculate the drop, here it's 1 3/4 inches, and move the line down to that level.
Right there.
For the side of the walk closer to the house, we drop down only 1 1/4 inches. This way, the walk slopes away from the house in 2 directions. This section from the stairs leading over to the main path is going to have an interesting twist to it. We want it to be level over at the stairs, but we want it to match up with the slope section when it joins over here. So it's going to change from being level over by the stairs to being slightly sloped over here. We figure the grade here by starting at the stairs and working back toward the section we've already marked the grade for. We know the height here at the stairs, and we know that the bottom of the stairs are level.
Okay.
The grade strings give us the height for each side where the 2 walks meet.
All right, slow down. That's good.
Like the patio edging, these redwood forms are permanent. We want to secure them firmly with these 1x3 treated stakes. The concrete will come to the top of the redwood, and the stake will be nailed to it about 1 inch from the top so it won't be visible.
Okay.
We set this first 2x4 in place and drive a stake down next to it. I want to get the stake about 1 inch below the grade mark. Notice I'm putting the stakes on the inside of the form, where the concrete will be. Now I attach the redwood to the stake with a cordless drill and 2.5-inch galvanized screws.
We put at least 2 stakes in every piece of form. The longer pieces require more stakes. We use the additional stakes in this form to straighten out the high point in the middle, the crown.
In this corner, these two boards meet to form a 45-degree angle. We'll need to make two miter cuts by splitting the 45-degree angle in half and making two 22.5-degree angle cuts. Okay?
Yeah.
A power miter saw is an easy and accurate tool for making these angle cuts. It pivots to cut any angle from 0 to 45 degrees. Right now I set it on the 22.5-degree mark and tighten. Then I line the blade up with the mark on the wood. I hold the piece firmly against the back of the saw, turn it on, and lower the blade through the wood. These 2x4s require two cuts. I have to flip the piece over, reverse the blade, and cut again. As with all power tools, you need to treat these with a great deal of respect. Always wear safety glasses and be sure to keep your fingers and clothing out of the way of the blade. A couple of nails makes this mitered corner solid. With the outside forms in place, we can complete the excavating, skimming out the inside of the forms. Then we can put in the internal pieces. These include the cross pieces, which divide the sidewalk into 3-foot squares.
We'll need to fill in some of our patio forms to bring them up to grade. We'll use wash sand for this. The last step with the forms is to backfill around the outside with dirt.
Now, concrete doesn't bond permanently to wood, so if you're creating permanent forms, you'll want to give the concrete something to grab onto. That's why I'm driving these 16-penny galvanized nails into the side of the form boards, about midway up and at 1-foot intervals. Leave about half of the nail sticking out.
While Dean is making sure the concrete will stick to the inside of the forms, I'm applying this masking tape to try to keep it from staining the top.
We've rented this electric concrete mixer. Now you can mix all these bags by hand in a wheelbarrow, but it's an awful lot of work. The mixer makes it a lot easier. It takes 4 or 5 bags at a time. I simply rip them open and dump them in. Adding water is the only tricky part.
Use a bucket, not a garden hose. You'll have more control that way. And use only enough water to get the concrete moist. Too much water weakens the concrete. When it's ready, pour it into a wheelbarrow and take it over to the walk.
All right, now this is the consistency that we're after. You don't want it too soupy, and you don't want it so stiff you can't work with it. Always begin pouring the concrete at the most distant form. Since we don't want to wheel the concrete over the forms, we have to shovel it into this first one. Use a shovel or a small wood float to work the concrete into place.
Okay, I need a clump right here. We fill the form so that the concrete rises a little bit above the edge of the form. We'll scrape it down to level in a second.
Once the form is full, use a straight 2x4 to screed the concrete level. The edges of the form serve as a guide for the screed. The screeding is just to get the concrete level. You tilt the board towards you a little and pull it straight back. The bottom acts as a cutting edge. Use a sawing side-to-side motion. This helps distribute the concrete laterally, but be careful not to mar the redwood forms. Make as many passes with a screed as it takes to get the concrete distributed throughout the form and level with the top.
This is a derby. It's used to smooth and compact freshly poured concrete. In particular, you want to make sure that you sink down any stones so that the very top is a thin layer of concrete called the cream. Use even, firm pressure and angle the derby just a little so that you're pressing down with the back side. There will be several more steps in putting the finish on the concrete, so you don't have to make it perfect now. Just eliminate any large bubbles and pockets. It's an art, but it's an easy one to learn. Hang on. Let her up. Okay.
The next step is to round the edges. Sharp corners on concrete will chip and break off. To do this job, we'll use an edger. It has a rounded edge that we run along the side of the concrete inside the form. Push down just a little with the back. You'll make a small mark on the inside, but don't worry about that. The last steps in the finishing process will erase it. Edgers come with different size curves on the side. We're using one with a 3/8 inch radius. This is good for most general concrete work. Work up to a corner and then pull back from it. Go all the way around the form.
We put the finishing touches on concrete with these floats. This one's made of magnesium, which is a lightweight but very rigid metal. And this finish trowel is made out of steel. Start using the floats after the concrete has had a little time to set up, maybe about half an hour after edging. But this will vary a lot depending on the weather and the dampness of your concrete. You should still be able to bring up just a little cream. If you start too early, that's okay, you can just wait. But if you wait too long, it'll be much harder to work the float. The mag float begins to put a surface on the concrete. You sweep back and forth with it. You can press firmly, but don't dig the surface up.
Thanks. The last step is the finishing trowel. It seals the concrete and gives it a smooth, hard surface. You just move it back and forth over the concrete, pressing very lightly.
We've spent all this time and effort trying to get the surface of the concrete hard and smooth. However, that's not really the best type of surface to have underfoot outside, especially if it's wet. So we're going to give the concrete a final broom finish. We're using a broom that's specifically designed for concrete, but a regular push broom will also work. Lightly pull it over the concrete. If the broom picks up clumps of concrete, you'll need to wait a little longer. And always make the grooves perpendicular to the direction of travel on the walk. Well, we've completed all the steps in our first 2 squares. Now all we need to do is the rest of them.
Depending on the design of your walk and how long it takes to do each step, you might want to pour a few squares and then go back and finish them off, as we did.
You might also consider wearing safety glasses and dust masks when you're mixing concrete to protect yourself from the dust and splashes.
You also need to plan your work so that you can reach the concrete to do the finishing. With the walkway complete, we'll let it sit for a while. Because it's located under the deck, it doesn't get a lot of direct sunlight, so it shouldn't dry out too fast. To finish the project, we'll plant some shrubs around the outside of the walkway, and in the process, turn a problem area underneath this deck into one of the more attractive areas in the yard.
This project will be a little different. We're building a replacement sidewalk for the front of the house. We're going to tie it in with the stoop and curve around to the driveway, and we'll be using a few different techniques for this. First of all, our forms are going to have to be curved, and second of all, we're going to be pouring our concrete all at once. Breaking out a sidewalk is hard work, but it isn't that complicated. A sledgehammer and a crowbar do the trick. To get a clean edge near the steps and to avoid cracking them, we use a chisel. We're going to widen the sidewalk a little at the end. A garden hose is a good way to experiment with different curves.
We'll be using a curved form for this sidewalk. To do that, we'll use 1/4-inch masonite ripped to 4-inch widths. Now the masonite's strong enough to hold the concrete in, yet flexible enough to make the curve. And because these forms aren't permanent, we don't have to worry about the look of the forming material. We lay the masonite out for the outside edge first and stake it in place. We establish our grade off the step and off the grass. We just make sure that it slopes away from the house. We screw from the inside of the form through the masonite and into the stake. You should put a stake directly behind any joints in the masonite so you can screw both sides into it.
Where the curved side ends, we'll cut the masonite so that it will butt into the 2x4 forms for the straight section. Then we stake the inside form. To set the height on this, we level across from the outside form.
Go up a little. That's like perfect right there.
For the joint with the 2x4, we need a stake behind the end of the masonite and another for the end of the 2x4. We want them flush with each other on the inside.
Now we nail the 2x4 into place, nailing from the back through the stake into the 2x4. We use duplex nails, nails with two heads, so that we can pull the forms out later. We also fill in with sand to bring the bottom up a little.
That's good. We'll use about 1.5 cubic yards of concrete for this walk. Now that's 75 bags, and we'd never have enough time to mix it or pour it for ourselves. Now we could have ordered it from a concrete company, but most of them charge you extra if you don't get a full truckload. Another alternative is to buy your concrete ready mixed in these small trailers. They're convenient and they can pull right into the spot where you need to pour.
Working with concrete requires speed and planning. On a hot, dry, windy day, it can harden in a few hours. As before, we use a wheelbarrow to carry it where we need it.
Once we've got 3 or 4 loads in the forms, it's time to start screeding. We do all the same steps that we did under the deck, except we do them continuously. Depending on the mixture of the concrete and the heat and humidity, we may need to be finishing the first part even before we finish screeding the end.
Instead of attacking next with a derby, we're using a bull float. This is a large float that serves the same purpose as a derby, but it's mounted on a pole that can reach out into the middle of a large patio, or even this small walkway. We'll do the edging as we did before, but with a continuous run of concrete, we'll also be putting in grooves across the pathway. To do this, we'll use a tool called a groover. So it's got to be about the right angle. You run the groover through the concrete just like the edger. Only instead of rounding the edge of the concrete, this leaves a 3/4 inch groove in the middle. This groove gives the top of the walk a little room to expand and contract. And if the concrete's going to crack from the changes in temperature, it will crack in the groove, where it's not very noticeable. Yep. We put the grooves in every 4 feet or so. The process continues just like our first sidewalk. We begin the final finishing with a mag float and smooth it with a finish trowel. A broom gives the surface its final texture. We repeat these steps on each square until the whole sidewalk is done.
In about a day or so, we'll be able to pull up the forms and fill in with some dirt and sod. But what took us about a day to build should last us a long, long time. Well, we've shown you 3 different ways to deal with patios and walkways around your home.
We realized we weren't able to cover all the variables you'll probably encounter in your project.
But we hope you've enjoyed and learned from this tape. It's just one of many Hometime titles that's available on home improvement and repair projects.
And be sure to watch our PBS series. I'm Dean Johnson.
And I'm JoAnne Liebeler. See you next time on Hometime.
Hometime is made possible by Chevy Truck, who brings you tough, full-size Chevy pickups for professionals and do-it-yourselfers like you. Chevy S10 pickups, compact, fun, and hard-working. Chevy S10 Blazer, logic and laughter in 2- or 4-wheel drive. Chevy Astro, the van that can. The heartbeat of America. Today's Chevy Truck.
Before you start a major home project on your own, getting a tough new Chevy truck to help out is a smart thing to do. The best way to check out the model that interests you is to take a test drive at your local Chevy dealer. And here's a tip on how to buy your new Chevy truck and get the options you want, while saving some money too. Ask your dealer about preferred equipment groups of options. There are special packages of options most truck buyers want, and usually order individually. Options that can include popular items such as air conditioning and automatic transmission. When you buy them as part of a preferred equipment group, you can save a lot. You'll get them at savings based on manufacturer's suggested retail prices compared to the same options purchased separately. It's more economical for Chevy to offer you options as a package or group. Chevy saves and passes the savings on to you. You'll enjoy the options while you own your Chevy truck, and they can add to its resale or trade-in value. So any way you look at it, preferred equipment groups of options are a good idea, and they're available on all new Chevy full-size pickups, S10 pickups, and S10 Blazers. Your Chevy dealer has all the latest details. Preferred equipment groups of options are another money-saving idea from today's Chevy truck, the heartbeat of America.